Before we begin, let me define one word first: entanglement. In physics, entanglement describes a condition where two particles become linked through a shared interaction so that their system remains correlated even when they're no longer physically connected. The connection exists because of coherence, and it lasts only as long as this condition that created it remains intact. Now, an important clarification. Yes, everything is made of matter at the most fundamental level, but human relationships do not operate at the particle level. They operate at the level of nervous system, attachment, and regulation. And this is where our metaphor begins. Human nervous system can become deeply interlinked in a way that feels inseparable through intimacy, repetition, emotional exposure, and shared trauma. And when coherence breaks, the connection doesn't slowly fade, it collapses. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Mind with Ani. Today, we are talking about why some connections feel instant, addictive, and impossible to forget, and why some breakups feel like withdrawal, and why some people don't just leave your life, they disappear from your timeline. So, if you've ever struggled to let go or wondered why someone disappeared without any explanation, stay with me. This will change how you understand human connections. As previously mentioned in physics, quantum entanglement describes a very specific phenomenon. Two particles interact in a way that their state becomes correlated. Once entangled, measuring one particle gives you information about the state of the other, even if they are separated by vast distance. Now, this is where people usually stop and then start inventing things. Let me clarify what I mean. Entanglement doesn't mean connection in the romantic sense. It means correlation due to shared interaction. Their link exists because of a shared history, not because of distance, destiny, or some sort of divine meaning. Here's a simple way to understand this. If I take two gloves, put one in New York and put one in Tokyo, and then you open the box in New York and you see the left glove, you instantly know that the one in Tokyo is the right glove. No signal is traveled, no magic happened here. The information was already structured into the system. Entanglement works similarly, but at a quantum level. And here's the part that I like us to slow down and understand properly. Entanglement is fragile. It only exists under very specific conditions: isolation, coherence, and low interference. The moment those conditions break, heat, noise, interaction with the environment, the entanglement collapses. And physicists call this decoherence. In other words, entanglement doesn't fall because particles argue. It fails because the conditions no longer support it. If I was to compare this with human relationships, think of two people that feel deeply connected, emotionally entangled, but external pressure like stress, trauma, misaligned values disrupt that bond. This is where the definition can be misunderstood. Some spiritual narratives turn entanglement into soul contract, cosmic bonds, once connected, always connected. I'm sorry, but that is too poetic, and in my opinion, it is incorrect. In actual physics, entanglement ends all the time because it is temporary, conditional, and context dependent. And pretending that it's eternal, it's not alignment, it's pure misunderstanding. And why this matters and why am I trying to be so precise? Because entanglement teaches us something very uncomfortable. Connections does not mean permanence. Correlation does not mean control. And intensity does not mean stability. Entanglement is not magic. It is coherence, and coherence has its limits. And once you understand that, You are ready to talk about human relationships without fantasy. Now, this is where people either become honest or they continue lying to themselves. Human beings are not quantum particles. Your ex is not vibrating in a higher dimension. No one is telepathically controlling you from another timeline. So when I use the word entanglement here, I'm not talking about physics. I'm talking about something far more uncomfortable. What happens when two nervous systems learn each other too well through intimacy, emotional exposure, shared stress or trauma, repetition, and attachment over time? This isn't soul merging. This isn't destiny or soul contracts. This is biological patterns syncing. And once entanglement happens, separation doesn't feel neutral. It feels like withdrawal. Let me clarify this through examples and why ghosting hurts more than rejection. Ghosting doesn't hurt because you love them very much. It hurts because your nervous system was calibrated to their presence. Your body learned how long it takes for them to reply, the tone of their voice, the rhythm of connections, the relief signals when they appeared. Then suddenly, poof, that signal is gone. There is no explanation. There is no closure. There is just no gradual disengagement. So the brain does what it always does when coherence is broken. It panics. It searches. It loops. And trust me, that is not romance. That is disrupted regulation pattern. And there is this controversial part. The person who ghosts often feels less pain because they initiated the break. The one left behind carries the nervous system shock, literally. Not because they were weaker, but because they were still entangled. Another example, trauma bonds versus real connections. People love saying, we had such deep soul connection. Let me translate that biologically. What they often mean is this: inconsistent affection, emotional unpredictability, highs of highs and lows of lows, fear of loss mixed with relief, stress mistaken for passion. And that is not love. That is intermittent reinforcement. Your nervous system doesn't calm, it stays alert, hyper-focused, addicted to resolution. And the more unstable the connection, the stronger the entanglement feels. Why? Because survival system binds harder than safety system. That's why calm, healthy love can feel boring at first, and chaos feels cosmic. Another example, why some people feel impossible to forget. Ever notice how some people disappear and you're fine, and there is someone who leaves and it feels like part of you have collapsed? When two people repeatedly co-regulate emotionally, physically, and psychologically, their system learns. When I'm with you, I stabilize. Take that away suddenly, and the body reacts as if something essential is missing, not because they were the one, but because the system hasn't relearned independence yet. That's why time alone doesn't always heal the nervous system. It needs new patterns, not just silence or distance. And here is the line most people don't want to hear. Some people didn't leave your life. They left because the entanglement could no longer be sustained. The conditions changed. One system evolved, one system dysregulated, one sought safety, and one thrived on intensity. And just like in physics, when coherence breaks, the link collapses. There are no villains, no divine destinies, and no curses. Just system that no longer matched. And why this matters? Because if you mistake nervous system entanglement for destiny, you chase people who destabilize you. You romanticize inconsistency. You resist ending what is biologically overdue. But when you understand, this is what actually happens. You stop asking, why couldn't they love me? And you start asking, why did my nervous system mistake intensity for connection. And that's where real power comes back. Please remember, not all intense connections are healthy and not all calm ones are boring. Most people were never taught the difference. So, what is trauma bond? Trauma bond doesn't feel toxic at first. They feel electric, magnetic, urgent, consuming, impossible to let go. You think, oh my God, I've never felt like this before. And surprise, surprise, that's the trap, because trauma bonds are usually built on emotional inconsistency, intermittent reward, love, withdrawal, love again, fear of abandonment, unresolved childhood attachment wounds, and nervous system dysregulation. In trauma bond, your body is not connecting, it is bracing. You're hyper alert, reading signals, waiting for relief, mistaking intensity for depth. Your nervous system isn't saying this is love, it's saying this feels familiar. And familiarity is not always safety. Sometimes it's just the old pain wearing a new face. So, why you can't let go? Even when you know it's bad for you, you can logically list all the red flags there. You know the relationship isn't good for you. Your friends don't understand why you're still attached, yet your body still reaches. But I want you to know that that is not weakness, and that's not your fault. That is conditioning. The bond was formed during stress, and the nervous system learned connection equals relief from pain. So when that person disappears, withdraws, or pulls away, your system panics, not because you lost them, but because you lost regulation. Regulated bonds don't announce themselves loudly. They feel quieter, slower, safer, more predictable, less dramatic. And this is where many people sabotage themselves. They say, something is missing. What's missing is chaos. In regulated bonds, affection is consistent, communication is clear, nervous system settles instead of spike. Conflict doesn't threaten abandonment. There's no emotional whiplash, no guessing games, no addiction to resolution. And for someone raised on instability, that can definitely feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. The unpopular truth is that intensity is not intimacy, anxiety is not passion, familiar pain is not love. If a connection constantly activates your fear, it is not that deep. It is unregulated. And if a bond allows your body to soften, to breathe, to stay present, that doesn't mean it lacks chemistry. It means your system is finally safe enough to stop performing. And the question that changes everything is, instead of asking, why do I feel so drawn to them? Ask yourself, does my nervous system calm in their presence? Because love doesn't hijack your body, it stabilizes it. And the moment you understand that, your entire pattern of attraction begins to change. Let's talk about ghosting, the sweet topic of ghosting, because ghosting has been dressed up as something mystical or divine redirection, the universe removing someone from your life. But most of the time, it's not spiritual, it's deeply human, and also a reminder of our patterns. What ghosting actually is: ghosting happens when a nervous system becomes overwhelmed, emotional responsibility exceeds capacity, and they didn't have the tools to stay regulated. Ghosting is not power, it is not dominance, it's not clarity, it is avoidance under stress. Let's talk examples. Notice the pattern. Things are fine when connection is light, communication is surface level, nothing is required emotionally. Then suddenly vulnerability increases, expectations appear, emotional reciprocity is implied, and that's when the disappearance happens not after conflict, not after rejection, after closeness. Because for so many people, intimacy doesn't feel like safety, it feels like exposure. And the hard truth is that someone can think about you constantly, they can feel bonded to you, they feel seen by you, even love you, and still disappear because connection does not equal capacity. Capacity requires emotional regulation, self reflection, maturity, the ability to tolerate another person's need, the ability to stay present during discomfort. And guess what? Many people have never learned that. So when intimacy asks more than their system can handle, they don't negotiate, they don't communicate, they don't explain, they just vanish. And why ghosting hurts so much? Ghosting doesn't just end in connection, it removes context. There's no closure, there's no narrative. Your system is left asking, what did I miss? What changed? Was it me? Was it them? And this is why ghosting can feel more destabilizing than breakups, because breakups involve information. Ghosting involves nothing, it involves absence. And your nervous system hates absence without explanation. I've done a lot of research on this topic, and let me tell you something. Ghosting is rarely about you being unworthy or not good enough. Most of the time, it's about someone avoiding their shame. They're avoiding confrontation. They're avoiding their own emotional limits. But here's where people get stuck. They mistake someone's inability to stay for a cosmic sign that the bond was too intense or meant to end. No, sometimes it just means the relationship demands maturity that simply wasn't there. Someone leaving doesn't mean the connection wasn't real, it means the regulation wasn't mutual. And this matters because you can feel deeply connected and still be incompatible. You can open up to someone without them being able to stay open. And that's not destiny, that's nervous system mismatch. Ghosting isn't a sign that you should wait or heal harder or dig deeper or love less. It is information. It tells you who can handle intimacy, who collapses under responsibility, and who confuses closeness with threat. And once you see that clearly, you stop romanticizing disappearance because real connection doesn't vanish without words. It communicates even when it is hard. So please give people time, observe them, get enough data, and then decide where you want to take your relationship with them. And here's what I want you to keep in mind. Some people live your life, some live your timeline. And the difference matters. When you regulate, mature, and stabilize, your tolerance changes, your identity reorganizes. Your nervous system stops resonating with chaos. You don't become better, you just become different. Different systems don't access the same future. What do I mean by timeline here? A timeline isn't science fiction. It's not parallel universes. It's the path of choices that are available to you based on what you can tolerate, what you normalize, what you repeatedly choose. When your internal state changes, the set of viable options changes with it. But you are still in the same location with same people, just different paths. And why some bonds can follow you. Some relationships were only sustainable when you were dysregulated, when you tolerated inconsistency, when chaos felt familiar, when over-functioning felt like love. When you stabilize, those bonds don't end dramatically, they simply lose coherence. Conversations feel forced, attraction fades, conflict increases because the conditions that once held that bond together no longer exist. In physics, entanglement doesn't break because particles are angry. It breaks when conditions change. When coherence is lost, the environment shifts, interference is introduced, no drama, no special meanings attached, just incompatibility at the level of state. Relationships work the same way. This is where people get stuck. People try to drag someone into their future they can't hold, explain themselves into being understood, downgrade their regulation to maintain a connection. That is not love. That is timeline collapse, and your nervous system knows it. So please bear in mind that not everyone is meant to grow with you. Some people were meant to wake you up, mirror your old patterns, teach your nervous system what no longer works. And once that lesson is integrated, the bond releases. Not violently, not spiritually, just structurally. And finally, let's talk about letting go. Letting go isn't about cutting cords, it's not about closure, conversations, or deleting memories. Letting go is about reclaiming regulation. As your nervous system stabilizes, the pull weakens, the urgency dissolves, the obsession loses its grip. The story you kept replaying quietly changes, not because you heal that connection, but because you no longer need it to regulate you. Most attachments don't survive on love alone, they survive on function. The connection distracted you from emptiness, gave intensity to a numb system, provided familiarity even when it hurt, helped your body feel something, anything. When your system learned to self-regulate, the connection loses its job. And when something no longer has function, it naturally releases. My lovely listeners, if you've ever wondered why someone vanished, why a connection dissolved without closure, or why something that felt cosmic couldn't survive in your life, that is not you failing. It is information. Connection requires coherence. Love requires capacity. And not every bond can survive after who you change and who you become. Some people don't live your life, they just live your timeline. So I want to thank you for being here with me, for lending me your ears, and for choosing clarity over fantasy. Take from this what resonated with you and leave what didn't. And until next time, stay fierce, stay bold, and always go beyond the mind.